Discovery Channel is confirming that MythBusters host Grant Imahara has died from a brain aneurysm.
Hello, my name is Grant Imahara, and it is 11:03 on Thursday, April 1st.
I think certainly one of the main passions in my life is robots of all kinds.
He was the brilliant mind behind R2-D2's rebirth, the brains of MythBusters, and a hero to kids in hospital beds. Grant Imahara wasn't just a genius, he was a rare blend of heart and intellect. But behind his smile and legendary projects was a silent danger growing inside his head. Why did a healthy, 49-year-old tech wizard collapse without warning? Why did the MythBusters team fall apart right after he left? And how could someone so gifted, so kind, be taken so suddenly? In this video, we'll uncover the untold story of Grant Imahara's life, career, and devastating death. From his secret health scares to the so-called MythBusters curse. What really happened? Let's find out. A childhood wired for genius. Grant Imahara's brilliance didn't emerge by accident. It was engineered from the beginning, shaped by a determined single mother, long nights of study, and an insatiable hunger to understand how the world worked. Born on October 23, 1970, in Los Angeles, California, Grant was raised by his mother, Carolyn, after his father left the picture. Life wasn't easy. They lived in a modest two-bedroom apartment, and Carolyn worked long hours as an accountant to make ends meet. But while others might have given up, she turned hardship into opportunity. Every evening, after 12-hour workdays, she spent 3 more tutoring Grant. At the dining table, she had converted into a makeshift learning center. There were no toys lining the shelves. Instead, she bought him science kits, practical tools for building, exploring, and questioning. She didn't just believe in her son. She invested in his potential. By the age of 5, Grant was already showing signs of unusual brilliance. One year, he disassembled 38 appliances, from toasters to radios, without writing a single thing down. He remembered every screw, wire, and component in his head. He wasn't just curious, he was methodical. He once took apart the family's brand-new microwave and discovered a critical design flaw. When his mother reported it, the company was forced to recall over 1,200 units. Grant was still in kindergarten, but genius comes with risks, and that year he learned one the hard way. While fiddling with a radio, Grant accidentally shocked himself so badly his heart stopped for a moment. Terrified, but aware of how his mother might react, he never told her. He didn't want to lose access to the tools that fueled his curiosity. Everything changed on May 28, 1977, when Grant saw Star Wars in theaters for the first time. He was 7 years old. For 2 hours, he sat frozen in his seat, wide-eyed and silent. When the movie ended, he began speaking in beeps and boops, imitating R2-D2. He didn't return to regular English for weeks, but this wasn't some passing obsession. That summer, he skipped 17 days of school to build a homemade R2-D2 using scrap metal and discarded parts he found in dumpsters. By the end of August, he had collected more than 600 pieces and created intricate hand-drawn schematics. While other kids played with Star Wars action figures, Grant was designing the real thing by flashlight, under a blanket, reading college-level engineering manuals. His school didn't always appreciate his genius. When he rewired the PA system to play the Star Wars theme on loop, the music sounded better than it ever had. But he got suspended anyway. Still, Grant never slowed down. By 1984, he was enrolled at Crestview Preparatory School, where he won a full scholarship. At 14, he corrected his physics teacher during a lesson. By his second year, he was banned from science fairs because the judges believed his entries were fake. Too complex, too advanced, too unbelievable. One of his early robots, named Murphy, used a salvaged Commodore 64 game console parts and home-rigged sensors to roam the school halls by itself. This was years before such tech became mainstream. But brilliance had its price. He burned his hands learning to solder, developed early-stage carpal tunnel by 16, and instead of attending PE classes, he hid in a science closet, quietly building circuits and animatronics while a sympathetic teacher looked the other way. By the time he graduated high school, he had built 13 robots, some sophisticated enough to rival early university projects. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just trying to build what he saw in his head. While most teenagers were dreaming of college parties or sports scholarships, Grant was already on a collision course with Hollywood and the galaxy far, far away that had first sparked his obsession. Star Wars and a life-changing leap. By the time Grant Imahara entered the University of Southern California in the late 1980s, it seemed obvious that he was destined for engineering. His early inventions, robotic builds, and scientific curiosity had made him a standout student. But college hit differently. As bright as he was, Grant burned out. He took on too many classes, too many challenges at once. At one point, overwhelmed and uncertain, he seriously considered quitting engineering altogether and switching to screenwriting. It wasn't just an impulsive thought. He loved movies, loved storytelling, and part of him wondered if the path he was on, buried in numbers and wires, would ever lead to anything meaningful. But a chance encounter changed everything. While wandering the campus in search of direction, Grant met Tomlinson Holman, the legendary creator of the THX sound system and a professor at USC's School of Cinematic Arts. Holman didn't just teach film sound, he revolutionized it. Grant, recognizing an opportunity, made a bold offer. He volunteered to be Holman's unpaid assistant. No pay, no prestige, just an open door to possibility. His job? Cleaning Holman's chaotic office, organizing papers from engineering groups like SMPTE and AES. It wasn't glamorous, but it reawakened something inside him. He saw how engineering and storytelling could live side by side, how the mind of a builder could shape cinematic worlds. Holman noticed Grant's passion and precision, and that mentorship opened doors. 1 year later, in 1993, Grant landed an internship at THX, Lucasfilm's elite audio certification division. He worked as a licensing engineer, testing loudspeakers and audio systems to meet strict performance standards. His role required total precision, evaluating how audio equipment handled stress, frequency shifts, and output quality. Every decibel mattered. Grant wasn't just checking boxes, he was protecting George Lucas's vision for what theater sound should be. He became obsessed with consistency, with fidelity, with making sure the audience felt the sound exactly as the filmmakers intended. But that was just the beginning. As Lucasfilm's productions ramped up ahead of the Star Wars prequels, opportunity knocked again. In 1996, Grant transitioned from THX to Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, Lucasfilm's cutting-edge visual effects company. While most of ILM's model shop team came from artistic or mechanical backgrounds, Grant brought something new, a mind hardwired for electronics and systems integration. He wasn't there to sculpt models, he was there to bring them to life. And no project demanded life more than R2-D2. The droid was more than just a fan favorite. It was a cultural icon. But by the late 1990s, the original R2 units were showing their age. They broke down on set, overheated, and struggled to roll on uneven floors. During pre-production for The Phantom Menace, Lucasfilm producer Rick McCallum called on a select few to rebuild R2 from the inside out. Grant was one of them, one of only 3 people in America officially authorized to operate R2-D2. That's how trusted he was. Grant led the full electronics overhaul. He replaced outdated motors with one taken from an electric wheelchair, added bigger wheels to help R2 glide more smoothly across studio floors, and designed new radio systems for better control. It wasn't just functional, it was revolutionary. And when Attack of the Clones began filming, he improved all 12 R2-D2 units with custom LED logic lights and microcontroller-driven dome displays, scrapping the bulky halogen systems entirely. The droid now moved better, looked sharper, and required less downtime between takes, all thanks to Grant's engineering genius. He wasn't just fixing problems, he was enhancing movie magic. And his commitment didn't stop when the cameras did. In his free time, Grant and a few ILM friends, including Adam Savage, started building personal R2-D2 replicas, not to profit, but to honor the legacy. They never copied parts. They built everything from scratch. That was Grant's rule. Respect the story. Respect the science. A single internship placed him in the shadows of Skywalker Ranch, where his childhood dream collided with destiny, MythBusters era, and its hidden curse. Grant Imahara's transition from behind-the-scenes engineer to on-screen star came in 2005, and it didn't just change his career, it redefined what a science show could be. That year, MythBusters was already gaining steam on the Discovery Channel, thrilling viewers with explosive experiments and wild what-ifs. When co-host and builder Scotty Chapman left the show, producers needed someone with technical depth, someone who could not only swing a sledgehammer, but design the systems behind the myths. That's when they brought in Grant. He wasn't a typical TV personality, but he had something more powerful: authenticity, brains, and credibility. Grant joined the build team alongside Carrie Byron and Tori Bellisi, forming a trio that would become iconic. Adam Savage once said, "Grant was the only one of us who actually had a degree in what we were doing." And it showed. He wasn't a performer pretending to be smart. He was an engineer who happened to be on TV. For nearly a decade, across over 200 episodes, Grant became the calm, calculating counterbalance to the team's chaos. He solved problems others couldn't. While Carrie brought creative flair, and Tori handled brute force, Grant handled the complex systems, circuits, and logic that made each experiment work. Whether it was rigging motion sensors, timing explosive sequences, or building fully animatronic rigs, he delivered results that were as reliable as they were jaw-dropping. But MythBusters wasn't all theory and tech. It was often gross, dangerous, and unpredictable. Grant learned this firsthand in one of the show's most infamous episodes. In 2009, the build team attempted to answer a ridiculous question inspired by Shrek. Could earwax be used to make a candle? The premise seemed goofy. Then, reality hit. A doctor handed them a jar filled with earwax collected from hundreds of patients. Grant's job was to heat it. As soon as the wax melted, the air filled with an unbearable stench. The wax was infected, and the smell was so overwhelming that Grant couldn't stop gagging. Cameras caught him dry heaving as he ran off set. He later called it the grossest thing I've ever done in my life. And this was from a guy who built robots for death matches. But the risks weren't always funny. In a 2011 episode, Grant built a replica of the flying guillotine, a legendary Chinese weapon. As he loaded the device for a test, it suddenly misfired. The razor-sharp blades sliced through his shirt, inches from his stomach. It was a chilling moment. From then on, he refused to handle the weapon without wearing a thick leather apron. That near miss was a stark reminder. that science entertainment often walks a thin line between curiosity and catastrophe. Despite the dangers, Grant's love for the show never wavered. He genuinely believed in its mission, making science fun, accessible, and thrilling for audiences of all ages. He mentored student robotics teams off-camera, spoke at universities, and used his platform to encourage kids, especially Asian American kids, to pursue careers in science and engineering. He knew what his presence meant. He wasn't just busting myths, he was busting stereotypes. But in 2014, everything changed. Behind the scenes, Discovery executives were looking to cut costs. They proposed reducing the build team's screen time and slashing their pay. Grant, Carrie, and Tori refused to accept the terms. After 9 years, they were quietly let go. Fans were blindsided. Adam Savage later said, "I didn't agree with the decision. I thought it was the wrong one." Many believed the show never recovered. Ratings dropped. Fan support dipped. And 2 seasons later, the original run of MythBusters came to an end. Some even began whispering about a MythBusters curse. With multiple tragedies touching the cast over the years, including the shocking deaths of Jesse Combs and later, Grant himself, it felt like the show's legacy was shadowed by loss. But through all of it, one thing remained clear. Grant Imahara was irreplaceable. When Grant left MythBusters, fans didn't just lose a favorite. Some say the show was cursed from that moment on. Inventions that changed pop culture. Even outside the glow of the MythBusters spotlight, Grant Imahara never stopped building. In fact, some of his most impactful work came away from the camera, quietly reshaping pop culture through brilliant inventions that many people never knew he had a hand in. His mind wasn't just wired for science, it was wired for delight, for crafting machines that could make people laugh, cheer, and believe in the impossible. And the beauty of Grant's genius? It touched everything from late-night television to battery commercials and blockbuster movies. In 2010, late-night talk show host Craig Ferguson had a strange idea. He wanted a robot skeleton as a sidekick. But not just any skeleton. It had to move, respond, and fit the bizarre offbeat energy of the Late Late Show. Enter Grant Imahara. Ferguson, a longtime MythBusters fan, tweeted about his dream of building a robot skeleton army. The fans loved it, and Ferguson reached out directly to Grant. The result was Jeff Peterson, a one-of-a-kind animatronic skeleton with blinking eyes, a waving arm, and a devilish grin. "I designed him to be remotely controlled," Grant said at the time. "He could move his jaw, blink, turn his head, all controlled by a puppeteer backstage." Jeff quickly became a cult favorite, known for his awkward charm and dry humor. The robot's voice was performed live off-camera, but the body, every servo, every wire, was pure Imahara magic. What started as a Twitter joke became a pop culture icon, thanks to Grant's ability to mix technical skill with quirky personality. But that wasn't the only time Grant took on an entertainment mascot. In 2008, he was brought in to redesign one of the most recognizable advertising characters in history, the Energizer Bunny. The company was struggling with aging animatronics, and they needed a total overhaul, one that was smooth, reliable, and believable on camera. Grant and his team didn't just fix the bunny, they reinvented it. He built a control system inside the drum using 8-bit chips and custom circuitry. Each bunny could wave, walk, and beat its drum on cue, all powered by 44 AA Energizer batteries, just like the ad claimed. The electronics were in the drum. "That was my job," Grant later told students at the University of Alabama. "And yes, they really made me use Energizer batteries. All 44 of them." The rebuild was a hit. The bunnies looked better than ever, but most viewers never realized who was behind them. That was fine by Grant. He didn't crave credit, he craved excellence. Still, few of his outside projects matched the scale or the secrecy of what he built with Disney. In 2017, Grant joined Walt Disney Imagineering to help design an ambitious, almost unbelievable idea: a robot that could fly through the air like a human acrobat. The project was called Stickman, and it was the first stage of something much bigger. Using a combination of motion sensors, gyroscopes, and flight physics, Grant helped pioneer a robot that could leap, flip, and land with stunning accuracy. By 2020, that work evolved into what the world now knows as stuntronics, robot stunt performers capable of launching 65 feet into the air. The most famous of them? A robotic Spider-Man, performing mid-air flips across the Avengers campus at Disney's California Adventure. Guests watching the show often gasped as Spider-Man soared overhead. But few knew the flips were real, and that a team led by Grant Imahara helped make it happen. His inventions didn't just entertain, they changed the game. Jeff Peterson made late night weird and wonderful. The Energizer Bunny proved that ads could still charm. And Spider-Man? He showed that robots could fly. But perhaps Grant's most powerful creation wasn't built for studios or theme parks. It was built for someone much smaller and far more important: Baby Yoda and his final gift. Grant Imahara's final passion project wasn't commissioned by a studio, greenlit by a network, or built for a paycheck. It was made for children, specifically children in hospital beds who needed something, anything, to make them smile. And what he gave them was magic. In early 2020, after watching a few episodes of The Mandalorian, Grant became captivated by one character: the child, better known to fans around the world as Baby Yoda. Like millions of others, he was instantly charmed. But unlike most fans, Grant had the skills to bring him to life. He didn't wait for Disney to ask. He didn't pitch it as a TV appearance or a product line. He quietly started building. In March 2020, he posted a short video to Instagram revealing what he'd been working on for 3 months: a fully animatronic Baby Yoda, crafted from scratch. The figure moved, blinked, turned its head, and expressed emotions through tiny gestures. "It's been 3 months of hard work and countless revisions," Grant wrote. "I did all the mechanical design, programming, and 3D printed the molds. He's currently running a continuous sequence, but soon I'll be able to trigger specific moods and reactions, as well as incorporate sound." This wasn't just another engineering flex, it was a labor of love. Every single feature was handcrafted. The internal skeleton was designed for subtle movement. The blinking eyes and tilting ears required specialized micromotors. The head was programmed to turn and express curiosity. Even the skin was sculpted from silicone and painted by hand, with every tiny hair inserted one strand at a time by a collaborator and prop artist named Lauren Markland. It took days, but Grant didn't cut corners. He never did. He told CNET, "I knew I had to make my own Baby Yoda, and it could be a character I could bring to children's hospitals for charity work, which is something I've been committed to doing." That last part wasn't just talk. Grant had long been involved in mentoring youth robotics teams, visiting schools, and speaking at science events. But Baby Yoda was something deeper. It was emotional. His goal was to bring comfort to kids in pain, to let them meet a character they loved in real life, if only for a few minutes. In a world of sterile hospital rooms and beeping monitors, he wanted to offer something joyful, and he chose to do it during a time of great uncertainty. Just as the COVID-19 pandemic began to shut down the world, Grant was finalizing the robot's final behaviors and reactions. The timing was cruel. Hospital visits had to be delayed, and plans were temporarily shelved. But the animatronic was finished. Baby Yoda was real and ready to make children smile as soon as it was safe again. Sadly, Grant would never get the chance to deliver him in person. Still, what he created stood as a perfect symbol of who he was. Grant Imahara had spent decades building machines that lit up screens, delighted fans, and pushed the boundaries of robotics. But this was something purer. He called Baby Yoda a happiness maker, and he meant it. It wasn't about what the robot could do. It was about how it made people feel. And even though he never made that hospital visit, the robot still did. After his death, Grant's team and loved ones ensured Baby Yoda fulfilled his original mission, visiting children's hospitals on his behalf. Grant wasn't there in body, but in every motor, every blink, every twitch of the ears, his legacy lived on. But Grant's story was about to take a heartbreaking turn. Just months after finishing his final masterpiece, he sat down to dinner and never got back up. The night everything changed. When Grant Imahara passed away on July 13, 2020, at just 49 years old, the world didn't just lose a brilliant engineer. It lost a symbol of creativity, generosity, and boundless possibility. News of his sudden death from a brain aneurysm hit like a thunderclap across the science and entertainment communities. His final moments were heartbreaking. During dinner with his fiancée, Jennifer Newman, Grant suddenly felt dizzy, weak, and disoriented. Within minutes, he was unresponsive. Though doctors attempted 3 surgeries in a desperate bid to save him, the damage was too severe. Life support was removed, and with it, a brilliant light was dimmed far too soon. Tributes poured in immediately. Adam Savage was one of the first to speak out, saying he was at a loss, and describing Grant as a brilliant engineer, artist, and performer, but also just such a generous, easygoing, and gentle person. Discovery Channel aired a multi-day marathon of his best work, from MythBusters to White Rabbit Project. Even the Dungeons & Dragons community honored him, with Matthew Mercer naming a character in Grant's honor, Imahara Joe, a genius tinkerer in a fantasy world. It was a fitting tribute for a man whose imagination had no limits. But Grant's story didn't end there. In fact, in many ways, his legacy was just beginning. On what would have been his 50th birthday, October 23, 2020, his mother Carolyn, fiancée Jennifer, and close friends announced the launch of the Grant Imahara STEAM Foundation. Its mission? To continue Grant's life's work by supporting students from all backgrounds in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. He had mentored young robotics teams for years, especially Team 841 from Richmond High, a group he championed long before most people knew his name. Today, that same team is led by someone Grant mentored himself. It's a full-circle moment that speaks volumes about his influence. The foundation doesn't just raise awareness, it takes action. Scholarships are awarded in his name. Unpaid internships are funded, so students don't have to choose between money and passion. Grant's personal effects, including over 80 props from his MythBusters days, were auctioned to support the foundation's work. Some of those items were hand-built by Grant himself, making them both valuable artifacts and emotional reminders of who he was. His legacy also lives on through representation. As a Japanese American on mainstream TV, Grant broke barriers without even trying. He didn't play a stereotype or fit into a box. He simply showed up as himself, smart, kind, and unapologetically curious. To an entire generation of Asian American kids, he proved that you could be the hero, the creator, and the brainiac all at once. He made science look cool without dumbing it down. He didn't need a catchphrase or a gimmick. His authenticity was his superpower. And perhaps most importantly, Grant left behind a model of how to live with purpose. He didn't chase fame, though he had it. He didn't hoard knowledge. He shared it freely. Whether designing robots for theme parks, rewiring R2-D2, or building Baby Yoda for sick children, Grant always asked the same question: how can this make someone's life better? That question continues to guide the foundation that bears his name. It inspires his fans, his friends, and the countless young builders picking up a soldering iron for the first time because they saw someone like Grant doing it on TV. He may be gone, but his fingerprints are everywhere, in labs, classrooms, studios, and now in hospital wards, where his Baby Yoda finally brings joy. Grant Imahara didn't just make machines. He made meaning. And meaning, unlike machines, never breaks down. It only grows stronger. Legacy, grief, and the STEAM Foundation. When Grant Imahara died on July 13, 2020, the shock was instant, but the grief that followed ran much deeper than a headline. People didn't mourn just a TV personality or a brilliant engineer. They mourned a symbol. A rare kind of person who managed to combine genius, humility, and joy in a way that felt almost too good to last. But if there's one thing Grant proved over and over, it's that real impact doesn't end with death. It echoes loudly, clearly, and beautifully in the lives you've touched. The world first heard the devastating news just hours after Grant's fiancée, Jennifer Newman, made the decision no partner should ever face. After 3 surgeries and days of uncertainty, doctors confirmed the worst. The brain aneurysm had caused irreversible damage. Grant, only 49, would never wake up. Jennifer, still reeling from the chaos of that night, later shared that one moment they were having dinner, and the next, everything had unraveled. There was no warning, no sign, just a sudden plunge into something no one could fix. But within days, his community stepped in. Adam Savage, stunned and heartbroken, called him brilliant, generous, and gentle. Others in the MythBusters family echoed the sentiment. Networks paid tribute with reruns. Scientists, creators, and even fantasy gamers honored him in their own ways. In Dungeons & Dragons, voice actor Matthew Mercer named a character after him, Imahara Joe, a genius artificer inspired by Grant's real-life brilliance. The gesture wasn't just a nod. It was a way to carry him into a world of imagination, invention, and magic. Exactly where he belonged. Yet the most powerful tribute came not from fans or celebrities, but from the people closest to him, his family and friends. On what would have been his 50th birthday, October 23, 2020, they launched the Grant Imahara STEAM Foundation. It was more than a memorial. It was a movement, one designed to continue the work he cared about most, giving young people access to science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, regardless of background. His mother, Carolyn, the same woman who once worked 12-hour shifts and studied at night to give him a shot, helped bring the foundation to life. The foundation didn't waste time. They launched scholarships, funded unpaid internships, and partnered with robotics teams across the country. One team, Team 841 from Richmond High School, held special significance. Grant had mentored them years before, helping students who reminded him of himself, curious, under-resourced, and full of potential. Today, The team is led by one of Grant's former mentees. It's the kind of full-circle story he would have loved. And then there were the props. In 2021, over 80 original items from Grant's MythBusters era were auctioned off, raising money for the foundation. Some of them still had his notes, wiring, and fingerprints. These weren't collector's pieces. They were tools of curiosity, forged in the spirit of exploration. Every dollar raised became an investment in the next kid like Grant, someone with big ideas and no clear path forward. But perhaps the greatest legacy he left was representation. As a Japanese-American engineer in a world that rarely made space for people who looked like him, Grant redefined what a science hero could be. He didn't wear a cape. He didn't act larger than life. He just showed up, episode after episode, with facts, empathy, and a quiet confidence that inspired millions. He was proof that being kind didn't make you soft, and being brilliant didn't mean acting like a genius. You could be both, and still smile through it all. If Grant Imahara inspired you like he inspired millions, honor his legacy by sharing this video, leaving a comment about your favorite moment, and subscribing for more stories that deserve to be remembered. Click the next video to keep exploring the real lives behind the legends.